The loss of a child is, without question, the most devastating feeling two parents can possibly endure. But to lose a child in the very place you'd expect them to be most safe is almost unimaginable. However, this is exactly what started to happen at the Countess of Chester Hospital in Chester, England. In July of 2015, 3 babies lost their lives under mysterious circumstances in the hospital's neonatal unit. This unit is where sick and premature babies are treated. So unfortunately, death is not something completely out of the realm of possibility here. Despite this though, these deaths were considered strange, as the babies had died from things like vein collapses and insulin poisoning. 2 things that were certainly possible for a very young child to succumb to, but not common in any sense of the word. The deaths were so strange that senior management at the hospital decided they were going to hold a team meeting to try and look into the incidents further. Unfortunately, this never happened. By the end of 2015, 4 more babies had died under very similar circumstances. Apart from the 7 who had tragically died, other babies were suffering near-death experiences that they survived only due to quick medical intervention. Some of these episodes had been so bad they left the surviving children with permanent medical issues. This prompted the ward's management team to do a staff analysis, examining what doctors and nurses had been on call during these incidents.
The pediatricians were discussing, the terrible nights on call that they were having. One of them said, every time this is happening to me, that I'm being called in for these catastrophic events, which were unexpected and unexplained, Lucy Letby is there. And then somebody else said, yes, I found that. And then someone else had the same response.
Letby had begun work at Countess of Chester in 2012, shortly after graduating college. She had worked since graduation to qualify for the neonatal unit, telling friends that she wanted to either work there or the ICU because she found the prospect of saving people in very fragile health situations exhilarating and, in her words, less boring than dealing with healthy patients. Her coworkers, though, particularly the more senior doctors and nurses, quickly began to question the authenticity of this caring persona, as they noticed an alarming number of babies Letby had treated throughout 2015 would become seriously ill for reasons that never seemed to make much medical sense. These findings were passed to the hospital's board of trustees, who ultimately made all of the decisions. However, they felt that the deaths were not Lucy's fault, and as we'll see shortly, the board taking Letby's side throughout the course of these early investigations would become an all too common occurrence. In June of 2016, the day Lucy returned from a week-long vacation, 2 triplet siblings died, with the third only surviving due to quick intervention from the hospital staff. The deaths occurred less than 90 minutes after Lucy clocked in for her shift. The ward's lead neonatologist again sent a letter to the board, this time demanding they remove Letby from his unit. The board yet again disagreed with this assessment. In fact, the staffing director, who would have been responsible for having Letby removed, told the doctor she would happily take responsibility for any other deaths that happened under Letby's care. However, by this point, the staff who worked with Lucy were raising too many concerns and in some cases even refusing to work with her, prompting the trustee board to finally have her removed and placed into an administrative position while an internal investigation was conducted. Their explanation was it was just incompetence or a training issue with the staff, and that ultimately it was the responsibility of the doctors in charge of the ward to fix, not the board's. They felt Letby was being singled out because she was new, and that the rest of the staff was trying to make her take the fall for their own failings. So basically their response was, your fault, not hers, and not our problem. Which is exactly the conclusion the internal investigation came to in early 2017. In their report, they stated that while they had highlighted some areas where improvement was needed, they, quote, could not find a single cause of the incidents, and described Letby as, quote, a capable and committed nurse, saying that criticisms of her had been unfounded and based on nothing more than, quote, gut feelings. Most shocking of all, Ian Harvey, the hospital's then medical director, commented in a section of the report that the board's goal was to, quote, protect Letby at all costs. Lucy filed an official complaint after the investigation was concluded, arguing she'd been treated unfairly and demanding she be given her old job back. Not only did the trustee board agree with her, Ian Harvey actually forced the ward's head doctor and lead consultant to sign a letter of apology to Letby for smearing her professional reputation. Harvey then gave Letby an official apology on behalf of the trustee board and agreed to have her moved back to the neonatal ward within the next few weeks. Her return was scheduled to take place in May of 2017, and staff were informed that anyone who refused to work with Lucy would face disciplinary action. Mind you, we are still at a point in this case where law enforcement has not even been contacted, and had the Board of Trustees gotten their way, they never would have been. However, doctors and nurses who worked on the ward bravely continued their pressure campaign to have police brought in to investigate the deaths, despite the fact they were risking their own careers at this point doing so. They reviewed the board's investigation and highlighted several of its shortcomings. To strengthen their support, they contacted the regional neonatal director and asked them to review the investigation. Upon this second review, they were in agreement with the ward staff that the deaths were suspicious and the best course of action was to contact police and allow them to look into matters. This report was presented to Ian Harvey and the rest of the hospital's senior management just days before Letby was scheduled to return. With the area's regional expert, a doctor whom Countess of Chester leadership couldn't retaliate against, now throwing their opinion in with the rest of the hospital staff, the problem could no longer be ignored, and the board reluctantly agreed to contact police. Letby's transfer back to the neonatal ward was suspended pending the results of the upcoming investigation. An investigation that would stun the UK public and leave the Board of Trustees at Countess of Chester answering some very difficult questions. Detective Superintendent Paul Hughes was assigned to the case and began gathering information from hospital staff. Hughes began to look deeper into Letby as a person, and what he found was disturbing to say the least. Parents of the children who'd passed away told stories of her disturbing behavior during the incidents. She would ask to be invited to the child's funeral and seemed to take a very twisted pleasure in cleaning and preparing the babies after their passing, with one of the victims' mothers recalling Letby smiling while she bathed her daughter's lifeless body. In cases where the babies would survive the attack, Letby would often express what seemed like disappointment and would still talk about the child as though they had passed. Parents of the two triplet siblings who'd been killed were so terrified of Lucy being near the surviving baby that they begged management to transfer them to another hospital. It wasn't just patients who found her behavior odd either. Other nurses and doctors recalled stories of walking into the nursery and finding Lucy standing over a baby in distress, just looking down on them with a blank stare. In total, police investigation linked Lucy to 7 mysterious deaths and 6 near-fatal incidents that, in many cases, left the surviving baby with a permanent disability. In July of 2018, Lucy Letby was arrested and charged with 7 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. An investigation of her home revealed some damning evidence. Several handwritten notes were found in her home that went into great detail about the deaths of each child. One chilling entry scribbled across read, quote, "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them. I am evil. I did this." Police also established that she would follow the Facebook accounts of the dead children's parents, visiting their pages over and over again in the aftermath as if she was trying to relive the murders and bask in their grief as much as she could. Over the next 2 years, Lucy was in and out of prison as she awaited her trial, and police continued to widen the scope of their investigation, believing there were possibly more victims. Finally, in October of 2022, her trial began. It was a 9-month ordeal that involved hundreds of witnesses and hours of testimony. In August of 2023, Lucy Letby, the woman Countess of Chester's senior leadership had glowingly described as a capable and committed nurse, while forcing hospital staff to apologize to her for how unfairly they'd treated her, was convicted of 7 counts of murder. The jury was unable to return a verdict for the attempted murder charges, resulting in a second trial being scheduled for those charges specifically, and as of the making of this video, that second trial has yet to take place. But the sentencing handed down for the 7 murders guaranteed Lucy won't be going anywhere anytime soon, as she was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of release. If there is any lesson to be learned from this story, it's the danger that trying to protect your organization's image at all costs can bring. Be it the Catholic Church protecting abusive priests, Hollywood protecting abusive executives and actors, or schools protecting abusive staff members, an all too common theme throughout these stories is the most vulnerable and innocent among us paying the most heavy price. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.